You may be seated. The theme of the book of Job is this: why do the righteous suffer if God is a good God? Why do the righteous suffer if God is a good God? What if God selected you and said, I'm going to let you suffer. I'm going to let you suffer like you never have before because I can trust you. I can trust you to be faithful. You won't turn from me. And even though I may allow Satan some advantage over you, when it's all over, when it's all through, I will get the glory. Would the Lord find that kind of a woman in this building this morning? Would the Lord find that kind of a man in this building this morning? Now keep in mind that here is Job, a man greatly blessed of God, a man upright, a man that's serving God day after day, concerned for his own testimony, concerned for the testimony of his own children. And then the scene begins to change. But unbeknown to Job, he had no instructions in this, no knowledge of this. Up in heaven, at the throne of God, Satan came, and the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? Job didn't know this was going on. He didn't understand this. He didn't understand that God was going to use him to prove the goodness of God and to prove the glory of God and to prove that it is possible for a man or a woman to have everything thrown at them that Satan can throw and still regain their integrity and trust God. This past week, you've been tempted, I'm sure. This past week, I'm sure that you have been tested. I'm sure that maybe Satan has come to you with what he knows is the most difficult thing in your life to face. Some kind of temptation. And the devil knows what your besetting sin is. And so he comes to you with that besetting sin. Now, you are faced with a decision. Have you noticed in the Bible how God came into the life of Abraham and into the life of Moses and into the life of David and all the way through the Bible, the Apostle Paul came to every one of them and gave them an opportunity to face a challenge and to stay true in that challenge and to prove that God is faithful. We will never prove our love for the Lord until we're faced with a tough challenge. And the Lord will place these challenges before us so that He will get the glory. Now keep in mind, listen, keep in mind, the whole theme of the book of Job is to show that God is a loving, righteous God and a good God, even though He allows His people to suffer at times. And so up in heaven, there's God, and there is Satan. And I read this, I read Job all the way through, and I thought about this. The average Christian probably would look at this book and look at this true story from a man's life and never really get it. Never really get it. Let me ask you this. What percentage of God's people that are alive today really know how to think? We don't want to think. We look at a subject like this and we don't want to think. We'd much rather be entertained. We'd much rather have the drums blasting, the smoke blowing all over the auditorium, loud music, people gyrating on stage just like it was a Hollywood performance. We want something like that. Or we want to be told, you're special. You're special. God's going to do something good for you today. He doesn't want you to be poor. He doesn't want you to suffer. He wants you to live like a king. And if you'll just send us some seed money or whatever. And Christians get caught up in that. And they glory in that. Now let's get down to where the rubber meets the road. Or we want some preacher to run up and down the aisle, scream and yell and holler and jump over benches. Never read from his Bible, never say anything, but walk out of the auditorium. Oh, it was so good to be in the house. Oh, I felt so good this morning, but nothing was ever said. We don't want to think. We want to be entertained. And you know why we don't have giants today like Job? Because we don't want to think. We're not willing for God to put us to the test. You look at the book of Job, and you know what you see? You see a man loved by God. There was no doubt about it. God loved Job. And God blessed him. One of the richest men of the East, probably lived in the day of Abraham. Cattle, all kinds of things, a wealthy man. God had blessed him. And he was a good man, and he was loved by God. But then he was lambasted by the devil. Christians suffer. Christians go through hard times. Don't let that surprise you. Don't let that discourage you. Christians will go through hard times. And if you don't think that it's going to continue, you live in a dream world. It's going to continue. And here's this good man, loved by God, lambasted by the devil, leveled by the devil. Can you see this? Everything he had, then his family, then his own body, sitting down and hurting and in so much pain that he has to have an instrument to scrape his skin to get some kind of relief, and yet in all of it he retained his integrity. Even his wife, why don't you just curse God and die? And notice Job's response. Well, you speak as the foolish women speak. Here was a man lambasted and leveled by the devil, but yet he was loved by God. And then, here's what I like. Through it all, he was loyal to God. Through it all, he was loyal to God. Back 6 months ago, I started reading through the Bible again. I think this is the 8th or 9th time, and I'm going to try to keep doing that until the day I die. I started reading through it again. And as I read through the Old Testament, and I get to Samuel and so forth, there was a phrase that kept coming back again and again and again. A holy man of God. A holy man of God. And it keeps saying that in Samuel and Chronicles and so forth. A holy man of God. And every time I read that, the Spirit spoke to my heart. How many holy men of God do we have today? Buddy had said something to me. And I asked myself the question, could I say that about me? And it'd be true. And I began to, every time I read that statement, it's said again and again. I said, Lord, this is something that you're saying this to me. I want to be that, but Lord, I need your help. Would you say that this morning, men? I want to be a holy man of God. I want to be a holy woman of God, but it's going to be hard. I've got to have your help. Huh? Here is Job, leveled by the devil, lambasted by the devil, loved by God, and stayed loyal to him all of the way through. And here's a man that suffered probably like no other suffered except maybe the Lord Jesus Christ. What will happen to you and what will you do if suffering comes? What if today or this week up in heaven Satan would like to get a hold of your life and the Lord allowed him to do it? I'm not saying that would happen, but suppose it did. How would I react and how would you react? Would I be willing to go through all of that? Now, of course, at the end, you notice what happened. God gave him back twice as much as he had before. God is a good God. God is a loving God. But let me tell you something. If suffering comes to you, there are some things that you can look for. Number one, it'll challenge your faith. It will challenge your faith. You know, it might be one thing to lose your job. It might be another thing to even have children taken from you. But when day after day, 24 hours a day, you're racked in pain. And then your best friend, your wife, says, just curse God and die. That's going to challenge your faith. But I'm going to say something to you this morning. This coming week, this afternoon, you will be challenged. Your faith will be challenged. Well, let me back up just a moment. I'm almost to the point that I think that some Christians are never challenged because they're just not going to do anything for God and the devil doesn't have to worry about it. There's some Christians just like that. They've already made their own decision. If it is convenient, well, Lord, I'll study your word if it's convenient, if I don't have anything else to do. I'd like to work in vacation Bible school, but it's not convenient. I'd like to teach a Sunday school. It's not convenient. I can't be here every Sunday. I can't be here Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. It's not convenient. I'm pretty certain that that's not much of a attack to Satan. Amen? But you start living for God, you're going to suffer, you're going to be tested, you're going to be tempted, and your faith is going to be challenged. Secondly, your faith or your face will change when you're challenged with suffering. Do you think it was hard for Job to smile? Do you think it was hard for him to laugh at times? Do you think maybe at times it was hard for him to express the joy of the Lord? Then your character will be challenged. Your character is going to be challenged. And that's when the rubber is going to meet the road. I don't understand the suffering, Lord. I don't understand why you're allowing this to happen to me. And sometimes maybe the old devil will come to us and he'll say, see there, God doesn't care a thing about you. If he cared about you, you wouldn't be suffering like this. So your faith would be challenged. Your face would change. Your character would be challenged. Would your character, your love for God, stand true? And then it can confirm your foundation. It can confirm your foundation. Look in chapter 1 again, if you will, and verse 1. Now look what is said about Job here. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, one that feared God and eschewed evil. Now look at that. First of all, he was a perfect man. You know what the word perfect means here? It means valid. He was real. Got it? Valid. One of the things that was proven in all of this is Job was real. Job was real. He was valid. Here was a man that let his light shine before God. The word also means accurate. Accurate. Now we can't be perfect, but we sure would want to be this kind of a man. Accurate. Valid. So that when someone looked at us and observed our lifestyle, well, he really is genuine. She's really genuine. But then he says not only perfect, but he was upright. That means he was honest. It means that he was just. Honest and just. And then he feared God and eschewed evil. The word eschewed there means he removed himself from evil. He removed himself from evil. What did Paul tell Timothy? Flee youthful lust. Some of the best things that you can do when you're tempted is just run. Just run. Get away. Get away. And so here is this man. All of these things could be said about him. Now look down in verse 5. There's something else even deeper. And it was so that when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. Now watch this statement. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Job loved his family, but here's what impresses me. This man wanted to be right in the world, but the first order of business was being the right man in front of his family. Let me read you a statement that I read this week out of a book by John Maxwell. John Maxwell has been one of my favorite pastors and writers, and I've read a lot of his books. He has a lot of good things to say. And I want to read you something he said in one of his books. For many years now, my definition of success has been having those close to me love me and respect me more than most. Why? Because of those who really know me don't respect me. That means I'm not living right. I'm not doing what I should. Did you get that? Did you get that? John Maxwell said, what concerns me most is how does my family see me? They know me the best. They know the real me. They see me at church, but they see me at home. They see me under all circumstances. And I want to be respected by them. A Sunday school teacher has a great responsibility. A youth director has a great responsibility. A deacon has a great responsibility. At church, but at home. A preacher has a great responsibility to rightly divide the word of truth, to protect the church. But a preacher that's worth his salt needs to know that when he walks in the pulpit, opens his Bible and begins to preach. And I told the men on Wednesday evening, soon I'll be married 47 years in August. And I said this, in every church I have pastored, my wife sits right there, about right where she is, for 52 years. I get up here and I preach. What if my wife sits there and says, well, he says that, but he didn't live it? Am I perfect? Is a preacher perfect? No. But I want my family to respect me. I want my family to respect me. And what am I saying? I'm saying God looked down and saw a man that could be respected. His family respected him. His children respected him. You see, there's this invisible war going on. Now, Satan comes to God, and now he throws everything at Job. In verses 1 through 5, Job was an unlikely candidate for Satan to go after. Unlikely. You know why? Because here was a man of character, integrity, holiness. I can see Satan going after Peter, can't you? I can see Satan going after some Christians that I've known down through the years, but why would he go after someone like this? How could he make his accusations stick? Does the devil come to me and come to you and make an accusation because he knows he can make it stick? Aren't you glad we have an advocate, Jesus Christ the righteous, that stands in heaven for us? Aren't you glad of that? Could you imagine what the devil could say about us to God? And I'm sure glad we have an advocate, Jesus Christ the righteous. An unlikely candidate. He couldn't make his accusation stick. And so his character was such that it seems unlikely. And then notice his commodities in verses 2 through verse 4. Now in those days, and in the Old Testament in particular, what a man had was many times evidence of the blessings of God. Now of course we understand that there were men that lost everything and God was still blessing them and they were mighty. But there were times that God said, I want to show the world what I can do to a man that really loves me, to a woman that really loves me. Paul it was evidence of being hit from every side and yet stayed true to God. But God blessed this man with his commodities. But you look in verse 6 and you notice his consistency. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Job, and Satan came also among them. We have on earth a man that's consistent serving God, but now we have an adversary that we need to remember is going to be consistent in his attack on us. The devil is never going to let it. Never going to let it. Let me say something that really bothers me. What I see that really bothers me. And I see it today in churches as never before, and that's this. Oh, I know the world's in bad shape. I know people need to get saved. I know. But I just really don't care. I just really don't care. Our pews are filled with people that just really don't care. We don't care whether anybody gets saved or not. We don't care whether there's revival in our church. We don't care whether our vacation Bible school is a success. Oh, Satan's just going to keep on going. You want to keep on going. He's going to keep on going. Now, Job suffered. Have you ever asked yourself the question, why do the righteous suffer? Well, sometimes people suffer because of their sin. Be sure your sin will find you out. And sometimes God will use sickness and things of that nature to chasten us. Sometimes we suffer because of foolish decisions. Foolish decisions. We need to pray that God will give us and help us to make right decisions. I pray constantly. I pray every day that the Lord will help me to make the right decision. I pray for my children that they will make right decisions. One of the most saddest things, I guess, is for a father or a mother to see their children making bad mistakes. You know that it's going to hurt them, and they make bad mistakes. Bad mistakes. And I pray for that every single day. But now wait a minute. God will also allow us to suffer at times to sanctify our life. To help us to be set apart for Him. To be set apart for His glory. No one is immune from suffering. But let me remind you again, the number one reason that Job suffered was for the glory of God. So that God would get the glory. I gave you the two verses last week out of the book of John, chapter 9 and chapter 11, verse 4. No man, no woman is immune from suffering, and God wants to help us. Now in verses 6 through verse 4, you see that unseen conflict. There was a heavenly assembly. There are things going on in heaven. There are things going on in the world you and I don't see. There are things going on in this service this morning that you and I don't see. There's an unseen battle. There's an unseen world. There's an unseen happening. And there's a heavenly assembly. Things are going on. Satan is allowed to go before God. Jesus is up there interceding for us. I want to ask you this question. When was the last time you sinned deliberately and you sinned and it was something that just was not good and it was not right and it was just awful? You were convicted. You were convicted. Lord, why did I do it? Lord, forgive me. And up in heaven, there's our Savior that died for us, that's going to intercede for me. Satan's not going to get the best of us if we will trust our Heavenly Father. There is a heavenly acknowledgement of what was going on down on this earth. Every time I read this passage of Scripture, it blows my mind. The unseen battle. There's a heavenly accusation. Why, he's just serving you for what he can get out of it. And then in verses 13 through verse 19, there's an unbelievable crisis. What will you do? What will I do when we're hit with a crisis? What will we do? Are you listening to the news? Are you listening close to the news of what's going on in the world? Innocent people getting killed because of their faith? Huh? People getting killed because of their faith? Did you read the whole story about the situation in Charleston? Did you read that whole story? Those black folk that were shot, this crazed man. And I loved it last night. I was watching it. 3 black mothers that their children were killed. You know what they said to the man that killed them? I'll never see her again, talking about her daughter. But I forgive you. What she said. I forgive you. I trust that you'll come to Jesus and that you'll get saved. 3 black ladies didn't talk about the Confederate flag. Didn't talk about black, white. They said, I love you in Jesus, and I forgive you. Well, wait a minute. Why wasn't that broadcast all over the national news? Did you ever think about that? Why wasn't that broadcast over the national news? Why wasn't it at the, the 6:30 news? It's all, I didn't see it. Did you? You know where I saw that at? The Hal Lindsey report that comes on Sunday night. That's where I saw it. A Christian program. See, the world knows how to hide the truth. They know how to cover over the truth. That's why you and I need to be awake to whatever's going on in this world. And here up in heaven, an unbelievable crisis. Look at the scope of the crisis. All that this man had worked for, all of his life, all he had worked to the bone to accumulate, all of it, and now it's gone. There's a sorrow of the crisis. Can you imagine the pressure that came? The source of the crisis. Satan threw everything that he could at this man. And I love it. Look at chapter 2 again, verse 9 and 10. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. Now let me hasten to say this. If you were that bombarded by Satan, if you were that bombarded, family taken from you, wealth taken from you, health taken from you, your wife says curse God and die, and then here comes your friends. Oh, surely I'll get some comfort from my friends. And all 3 of them had their idea of why Job was suffering, and not one of them offered any help or any compassion. Not a one of them. It just keeps going, and it just keeps going. But Job knew one thing. There's a righteous, loving God in heaven, and He's for me. There's a righteous, loving God in heaven, and He's for me. Heard a preacher give this story about a church out west, and a country church out in the country. and everyone was farmers that were attending the church. And there was an atheist that owned the farm right behind the church. And every year at harvest, it seemed like these farmers, their crops just gave up pittance, just enough to keep them going. And the atheist who had the farm behind them had the best of the property, the best land, and he would always bring in his crop in October on Sunday. Pick that up, God may be calling. I'm joking. Every October, he would bring in his crops on Sunday. And as the people would leave church, he would laugh at them. Look at what I have done. But one October, he did the same thing, and he wrote a letter to the local newspaper. And he said, those people down there tell me there's a God that loves them, and every October they only have a pittance of a crop coming in. Look at what I have. Where is God in October for those people? And the editor wrote him back and said, sir, God doesn't always settle his accounts in October. Huh? God doesn't always settle his accounts in October. Have you ever been down? You ever been discouraged? You ever been defeated? All of us have. But to know that you have the all-powerful God in heaven who is for you. He's for you. Now, if I ask you this question this morning, how would you answer it? Do you know if you died today, you'd go to heaven? Can you give a Bible reason? I told our men the other night, I said, I've been doing something now in visitation, and I just started doing it. And yet, visitation is an interesting thing. Last week, I went visiting, and everybody was friendly. Everybody came to the door. Everybody was going to church somewhere, and just a delight to visit everybody. And yesterday, I think I met the meanest people in Granger County. Every door I knocked on. I don't care anything about church. I don't care anything about God. I don't care anything about heaven. Didn't want to take a tract. Didn't want to read it. I mean, just, and you never know. You just never know what you're going to meet, do you? When you go out on visitation. But you know why I should go? It's because there's lost people that need to be saved. Do you know if you died today that you'd go to heaven? See, we need to tell people. We need to let them know that there is a hell and there is a heaven. I'd like to ask you this question this morning. If the devil came before God and God said, have you considered my servant and brought up your name? How would I stand that test? How would you stand that test? Do we look at our life daily and examine it daily to see where we are? Let my people think, what Zechariah says. Do we think? Are we willing to think? Are we willing to take a serious look at where we are? Maybe some of us need to get that settled with the Lord. Maybe there's something in our life that needs to be settled. Would you stand with heads bowed and eyes closed, please?